Hello and welcome to Modcast, your source for everything new in the world of video games. I'm your host, ModSky832, and this week's episode spotlight is on Extra Life. So the first segment of the first episode is what's popular. This is what everybody's playing. I'm not just gonna list off the names of what has the most current players, because it would basically be the same list every single episode. But I did search through some lists, and these are the games that a lot of people are playing, and they look like a lot of fun. First up is Cuphead. If you don't know what this game is, you're living under a rock, or you're a PS4/Xbox gamer. I did kind of focus on PC gaming in this first episode, but it is what it is. Cuphead's super popular. Obviously, PUBG is the most played game currently, smashing all the records, and it has been for a little bit now. But it's new and it's super popular. CSGO and LoL, probably the only time I'm going to mention them in this segment, because they're always two of the top played games at any given point. It would be news if they weren't. And if they're not the top played games, I'll probably include them in this segment just to try to figure out what happened. Fortnite is super popular, especially on Twitch. Lots of people are streaming the gameplay of Fortnite, especially the Battle Royale. So yeah, that seems to be tons of fun. Another game that I had not heard of before, but is apparently super popular, is called They Are Billions. They Are Billions is a steampunk strategy game set in a post-apocalyptic planet. Ooh, that's a tongue twister that I didn't realize was a tongue twister when I wrote the script. You're supposed to build and defend colonies and survive against zombie stuff, and it seems like a pretty cool game, and I might have to try it out. Next one on my list here is Tacoma. So you're in an abandoned spaceship, and you're tasked with discovering what happened to the station's missing crew. I believe this one's slightly older, but this isn't what's new. This is what's popular, and it seems to be pretty popular. You're supposed to figure out what happened to the missing crew by rewinding and fast-forwarding logs and surveillance footage and examining emails. It looks like a pretty cool puzzle. It's not a puzzle game, but it seems like a fun adventure to go on. And if I had more hours in the day, I would probably check it out. The Amazing Frog, with a question mark at the end. Didn't see this one coming when I was looking at what's popular, but it's a hardcore parkour open world buffet of bonkers physics sandbox gameplay. And if that doesn't sound like you're going to sink 12 hours in your first gameplay session into it, I know I would. If I play this game, I'm almost certain that I'm gonna play it all day the first time I play it, because it just sounds like so much fun. Now, Overwatch is obviously a very popular game, but in the recent weeks, it has seen a surge in gameplay. More people are playing it than normal, and I suspect that's due to the upcoming Overwatch League. More on that later in the podcast. Last but not least, we have The Witness, and this is probably one of the best puzzle games ever. If you have not played it, it's a bucket of fun, and it will keep you entertained for months. It's so much fun if you are into puzzle games. If puzzle games aren't really your thing, that game probably not for you. this week's new game of the week, even though it's a bi-weekly podcast. I'm working on it. It'll be weekly soon, I'm sure. I'm convinced that I'm going to do this weekly sooner rather than later. So, this game's new game of the week is Orbitality. I believe it just came out on December 30th. So that's 6 days prior to me recording this. And in this game, you take the role of an orbital service drone of an advanced civilization. You fly with insane speed and enjoy the cosmic scenery around you. From what I can tell, this game is not all about the gameplay, but my goodness, it looks beautiful. Beautiful. And I'm definitely going to try this one out. This isn't on my list of things to play. I'm gonna play this game this week because it looks so stunning. So this is where I'm normally gonna put the streamer / YouTube content creator of the week. That's not happening in this episode, but I didn't put this segment in for no reason. There is a bit of news on this front I wanted to cover, and that's slobs. So, for those of you who have ever tried streaming your gaming content to a service like Twitch or Mixer or any of the above, particularly those who use alerts for different things, like when you get a new follower, you might have an alert pop up on your screen. A popular service for that would be Streamlabs, and they have gone and made their own version of OBS, which is a popular broadcasting software gamers often use to stream their video game content on the internet. And it's kind of interesting that they are so powerful in this market that it's very difficult for any competitors to really compete with them. And if Slobs actually takes off, which is an acronym, it stands for Streamlabs OBS, then they're gonna have this market by the throat, and it's going to be potentially scary if they try to monetize this beyond taking a percentage of tips like they already do. And now a word from one of Montcast's supporters. Twitch Club is a group of like-minded gamers dedicated to spreading as much awareness as they can about Extra Life. Full disclosure, I am a member of Twitch Club, a proud one at that, and it is also my Extra Life team. We'll get more on Extra Life in this episode's spotlight. So now for the straight up video game news. There's only one story I'm covering here in episode 1, but there will be more in future episodes. The one story I've decided to cover in this episode is the Intel CPU debacle. This is the debacle where there was a security flaw exposed with Intel CPUs, and the Intel CEO sold as much of his stock as he could when the news broke, and it looked really bad for Intel, and therefore really good for AMD and all the other competitors. But essentially the story in a nutshell is that exploits are extremely technical, but in a nutshell, it's basically the chip's kernel is leaking memory because of how it handles speculative execution, which modern processors perform to increase performance. An attacker could exploit these CPU vulnerabilities to expose sensitive data. An attacker could exploit these CPU vulnerabilities to exploit extremely sensitive data in your protected kernel memory, including passwords, cryptographic keys, personal photos, emails, and any other data stored on your PC. Meltdown is the more serious exploit that the operating systems are rushing to fix. This includes Windows and Mac, both making public statements that they're rushing to fix these fundamental flaws. It breaks down, according to Google, it breaks the most fundamental isolation between user applications and the operating system. Hopefully this all sorts itself out, but yeah, it was a bad one, and if this is the first you're hearing of it, just Google Intel CPU issues and you will get a plethora of articles covering the story. Next up, we have the Indie Game of the Week. Yes, I'm sticking with the of the week as opposed to of the episode because I like of the week better. Indie Game of the Week is Tumblestone. This is so much fun. I have spent a considerable portion of time trying to figure out the puzzles in this game, and it's so much fun. Essentially, if you've never heard of Tumblestone before, the Steam description written by the developer, so it's a little biased, but Tumblestone is the first original action puzzle game of the past 15 years, completely reinventing the genre into a deep, cerebral puzzle-solving experience that you won't forget. I don't think that does a very good job of explaining the game, having played it before, but it kind of takes cues from bubble pop shooters where the bubbles come down and you try to shoot the different colored balls, and if you shoot a blue ball and it hits another group of blue balls, all the blue balls disappear. You're trying to get rid of all of the blocks in this case. It can be deceptively difficult, and it's a lot of fun. I highly recommend you checking it out. Again, that's Tumblestone. You can find that on Steam. Next up, we have esports. As I mentioned, I'm just gonna power right through this, not getting into the nitty-gritty details. Overwatch League is about to start, and I'm so freaking excited. Full disclosure, I'm gonna be cheering for the London Spitfire. That's my team, and I'm sticking to it. And now it's on the record, so you can hold me to it. But the big games that I'm looking forward to in week 1, which starts on January 10th, by the way. That's the first day of the inaugural season of the Overwatch League. And the first game I'm really interested in is that third game between the Dallas Fuel and the Seoul Dynasty. Why is this such a big game? Because it's one of the biggest North American teams. The Dallas Fuel is one of the strongest North American rosters ever put together versus a full Korean team. If the Dallas Fuel win this, it's huge, because honestly, when you are a professional, you are dedicated your whole life, you've got health benefits and a salary. There's no excuses that you are losing because your opponents are Korean. And I really think the Dallas Fuel stand a solid chance at beating a Korean team. And I don't think the all Korean teams are going to finish 1, 2, 3 in the Overwatch League. I think the gap is really closing. I also think that every single team in the Overwatch League is going to improve by leaps and bounds throughout the season. Next game I've got my eye on that I really want to highlight is on the 13th. It's the the last day of week 1 games. And that's the New York Excelsior versus the Houston Outlaws. Why is this a big game? Well, for the same reason as the first one, it does happen to be a Korean roster versus a non-Korean roster, but these are two of the top-rated teams in the league, and they are facing off in week 1. So obviously it's exciting, and it's gonna draw a lot of viewers. We also have the LCS coming up. That stands for League Championship Series. That's League of Legends. Franchising takes effect. So this is the first season in North America where it's all franchised. All the teams are permanent. There's no relegation. And there's a new schedule, best of ones. You can look up the streaming schedule if you're interested in watching the games. But I'll touch on this more in depth when the games actually start, which I believe is the 19th and 20th for EU and NA regions respectively. And last but not least, the Smite World Championships are happening right now in Atlanta. I will come back next episode with a full summary of the tournament, so you can look forward to that. And before we get to this week's episode spotlight on Extra Life, I'm just going to take a break to let you know, leave a review on iTunes and give me your feedback. Those reviews on iTunes or wherever you get this podcast helps me so much, like you would not believe how heavily reviews are weighted in podcast distributors like iTunes and Stitcher, both of which you can find my podcast. So yeah, it would mean the world. Please give me feedback, tell me what I can do better, and leave me a review, and I will love you forever. And we have arrived at this week's episode spotlight. This one is on Extra Life. If you don't know what Extra Life is, Extra Life unites thousands of gamers around the world to play games in support of their local Children's Miracle Network hospital. And since its inception in 2008, Extra Life has raised more than $40 million U.S. funds for sick and injured kids. Sign up today and dedicate a day of play for the kids. So the reason I say dedicate a day of play for the kids is because it's a popular thing to do with Extra Life, to do a 24-hour gaming marathon. This works just like the readathons I did in middle school. Readathons I did in middle school, where I would pledge to read 3 novels. I would have, like, my aunt pledge $5 for every novel I read during the promotion, which was like 2 weeks or something like that. But Extra Life is really cool because you're competing to raise money for a Children's Miracle Network hospital of your choice. It's not necessarily your local one. I play for the Children's Health Foundation in London, Ontario, because that's near where I grew up. But that is not my local hospital. It's not the closest one to where I live now. But I just choose to play for that one instead. I am on an Extra Life team, so the team of us can have a team goal that we want to raise $5,000 this year for Extra Life. But that's not so daunting when you have 20 or 30 people trying to raise $5,000 rather than one. And if you have not heard Victoria Enman's story, it is the foundation of what Extra Life is. I will link the YouTube video of just her story in the podcast description for this episode. And there are thousands and thousands and thousands of stories just like hers, where the money that gamers have raised through this charity has just turned people's lives around, and it's so heart-wrenching to watch the stories, but amazing to know that the money I raise is going directly to my hospital. It's not going through a third party or anything like that. And the Children's Miracle Network is such a tremendous charity. You can do your research. I encourage it, but I assure you, this is not like those charities you hear in the news with scandals and that. There's none of that, because the money literally goes, it bypasses everybody and just goes straight to the hospital. And you can compete against your friends to see who can raise more money for their hospital. It's so much fun. I am actually going to Extra Life United in 2018. And that is a big gaming tournament with some sponsors where the sponsors provide some money and the gamers compete to win that money for their hospital. So when I go to Extra Life United, which is in Orlando in March, if I happen to be the guy that wins the biggest tournament there, I'll win $150,000 US from my hospital. Now, that's not going to happen because I suck at video games, but, you know, I'm going to have fun trying, and I'll probably win a couple bucks here in the just winning some games on the way. But I'm just going to have fun hanging out with my Twitch Club friends. It's going to be a good time. I hope to see you there. If you want to join Extra Life, you can sign up at extra-life.org. You can also find out a lot more information about it, figure out what it's all about, and do your research there before you sign up. And you're not obligated to any minimum dollar raised amount. There are people that actually raise zero money, but they help their friends and they donate to their friends' campaigns. So yeah, it's tremendous, and I don't know where I would be without this charity, because it's actually, my participation in this charity has actually ended up in me meeting some of my best friends in the whole wide world through us both participating in this game and running in this charity, and running into each other through Extra Life channels, and that's been awesome. Well, we're closing in on the end of the episode because we've reached the listener questions portion of the podcast episode. Unfortunately, I don't have any listener questions, but feel free to send them to my email. You can find the link in the podcast description. And you can also probably find me on Twitter. It's not that hard, knowing that my name is Monscott832. Pretty sure that you can figure it out. My image on Twitter is the same as the podcast image, and my cover photo, banner photo thing on Twitter is an Extra Life image. That's how you'll know you found me. And last but not least, subscribe so you never miss an episode. Leave me feedback, like, did I focus too much on PC gaming in this episode? Probably, because I didn't touch on anything else. But let me know what you want to hear, and I will work to include that in the next episode.